Alright, so seeing as how it just started pouring, and looks like I can't go and do much of anything anywhere right now. And yeah, I'm sitting in the driver's seat, I just put the phone, tucked it in the dashboard behind the steering wheel column so that I can smoke and just talk and not worry about holding the phone. So I decided that I am going to pick back up with the story I started last night. It's not a story, recounting that began last night, of how I got started, how I stumbled upon this network. And again, this is sort of quick blow by blow outline of roughly everything that's happened. I'm not going into nearly as much of like the research. That'll be separate videos, and there'll probably be a lot of other like more detailed information about my interactions and such with these people to come. But again, this is, and I'm probably gonna make a whole other video, like hopefully the whole thing together, which I've done. And again, it's on my laptop, it's too big to push around. Yeah, anyway, so I believe where I left off last night with the previous video was I'd identified Dave Frank and his family, some associates. A lot of my research shortly after that, attached to the whole thing, led me to realize that they like using the vampire myth to identify themselves, alluding to it and such, which led me to starting to look at an old classmate of mine, Chris Thompson, who's a member of the band Vampire Weekend. When I started to very strongly realize, like, damn, this dude's a part of it too. 'Cause I'm sorry, you guys aren't all just playing with the same symbols. Coincidentally. You know, like Vampire Weekend has a spiral snake and a lot of stuff. They're gonna get their own video. They're gonna get probably at least a couple of their own videos. So then I contacted Maxwell. Paul Maxwell. He's almost exactly like a decade older than me. I think I remember. He's like 1974. From Oklahoma. He was my art teacher in high school, the same school that I went to with Chris Thompson. And that dude, Maxwell, always had a big interest in occult stuff, and he's a trained visual artist. He's an art teacher, and he knew Chris Thompson, and I knew he was on the smart side, so I wanted to seek his advice on the whole thing. So I contacted him. He started acting funny. I think I explained about the homepage for his website. He replaced with a pill popping site, a scam pharmacy site. And so then what happened with Maxwell, was once I started looking around at his artwork on his portfolio, online portfolio, I started to realize things. I think I explained like the references to Chiron and Walt Whitman and Pink Floyd, Piper at the Gates of Dawn, and there was more than that, but he's gonna get his own video. But also, like, it's gonna probably recount a bunch of this, but still. So then I sent him an email. Because I didn't want to completely think what I was beginning to suspect, what my gut was starting to tell me, which is he's in on this. I didn't want to think that about him, because I thought pretty highly of him. I think I mentioned in the last video, I considered him to be like a mentor of mine. So at first I was telling myself, I mean, very briefly, because it was, I'm sorry, just too much reality interrupted my fantasy that he was a good guy. At first I was telling myself that he was just scared. Like, he knew how serious it was, that he's not one of the sheeple who, like, don't pay attention. He knows how serious this is that I'm talking about, and he doesn't want anything to do with it. And that's what I was thinking at first. Like, he's just like, nah, dude, don't contact me. And, like, his way of saying that was taking down his homepage. Even though, like, again, all the stuff from his artwork was staring me in the face. Like, it's just, my mind was like, nah, not Maxwell. So I was coming up with excuses. So the next email I sent to him, when he hadn't responded back yet, I'd gotten the automated message. I sent him another email that was basically like, and I'll be going over like the exact emails in other videos. Reading them off and showing them to you. It basically went along the lines of, you can sit in your loft in New York City and paint pretty pictures. But, I actually want to help people, and, I'm not a coward, and you gotta die sometimes, so you might as well die fighting for what you believe in, so on and so forth. Because, yeah, I already knew at this point, like, we're dealing with these people have resources, and they can probably pull some shit if they want to, and he's smart enough to know that, too. So, yeah, I was telling myself at first, like, he's just being a coward. So yeah, I sent him that email. That was kind of just like calling him out and saying like, okay, if you don't want to help, cool. I don't think you have any balls. Then he got back to me. He sent me an email that was like, hey Kat, sorry, I've been on vacation. Got kids now. Like, I haven't been able to handle a lot of bandwidth. Which, like, where the F were you on vacation? You couldn't handle that. Like, I've had service in the middle of deserts. And Colorado mountains. You have, like, an address registered to you in New York City and one in, like, the Catskills. A couple in, like, the Catskills. So, I don't know. I'm just pretty sure you're not anywhere that can't handle the bandwidth. For not really a large, I don't believe it was a large PDF I sent him, but and it was just like it was sort of like sending me on a wild goose chase. He suggested a podcast that I barely looked into because I just automatically sensed, like, again, all through this email he sent me, it didn't, I mean, it was him, but it just didn't sound like his typical self. It sounded like like him trying to sound more serious and adult than I remembered him typically coming off as. I understand people grow up and change and so on and so forth, but I don't know. It was not striking me well in the gut reading that entire email. It just sounded like kind of a bunch of bullshit, like placating bullshit. And I looked at that podcast long enough to confirm what I already suspected, which was, like, I don't think I'm going to learn much from this. And I'm trying to remember what else there was in the email that set me off and made me suspect certain things. Oh, he said, like, yeah, he's leaning more Christian these days, and it's like, I guess you gotta know Maxwell to be like, that's bullshit. You're full of shit, dude. Leaning more Christian these days. I mean, you can say that, but leaning more Christian isn't being more Christian, and, like, you know what I'm saying? Max, come on. What the fuck? More Christian these days? You mean Christian like how I've been making connections between Yahweh being a warrior deity and Huitzilopochtli, or whatever his name is, that Aztec hummingbird deity also being a warrior deity, and suns and And we'll get into more connections I've been made. I wish I had had the focus and the information, because I hadn't stumbled upon this in my research yet at this point when I was speaking with Maxwell, that a lot of pedophile networks hide information in their websites, like in the coding and the JavaScript of their websites, that is, instructions on, like, here's where you go to get to the child brothel, or like, here's how you pay me for the child pornography and stuff like that, which could have been a reason why he was messing with his homepage suddenly right after I contacted him, and I didn't think to grab the JavaScript for his. I just didn't suspect him right off the bat, first of all, and the whole process of me coming to gradually force myself to accept what was staring me in the face, which was like, yeah, no. And then, I started recalling, just a lot of when I was a teen, back in high school, and interactions with him, which, like, none of it was completely inappropriate, but it was. I'll get into more of that with the other video, because there's something else I really want to cover having to do with Max that's super important. It's a big kind of milestone in all of this that made me really buckle down and go, like, yeah, I'm on to something. So he sent me that email, and my gut was going bullshit, and I was looking at the paintings some more too, and it was really sinking in, and I was like, so I sent him one last email that was like, basically like, dude, what the fuck? Are you kidding me? Do you think I'm a fucking idiot? I mean, I know you haven't seen me since I was a teenager, but I've got almost about like 20 years of age on me and wisdom and experience. Like, I know how to suss out lies from a man. A and B, and like, what's all this shit with, Chiron, Walt Whitman, Piper at the Gates of Dawn, so on and so forth. So basically just calling him out straight out. And he sent back one last email that was like, Cat, and it was like, it had the tone of like, disappointed daddy. Cat, I'm only responding to this out of respect for a former student, and I won't respond to any more, and blah, 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 blah. Which also didn't jive with him too much, because this is the guy who, it's kind of like, who the F do you think you are, first of all, taking disappointed daddy tone with me? This is the guy who recommended the book, The Story of the Eye, to me when I was a student at the school he was teaching at, as a teenager. For those of you who've never read that story, it's a short little novella by Georges Bataille. It's a French novella, but you can get it in English. The Story of the Eye, or Story of the Eye. Go ahead and read it. Let me know if you think it's appropriate for a high school teacher to recommend that to their student. That's just one of the things. But anyway, it's like, we were more friends then, or I clocked us as being more kind of like friends, buddies than, or I don't know. And maybe more like student mentor, but like with a bit more of a friend buddy edge to it than I'm your daddy teacher. So it's like, I don't know what the fuck that tone is like. I've had a kid since I last saw you. Buried her too. I don't know where you get off giving me disappointed daddy tone. I'm not a little girl, you idiot. I wasn't a little girl even back when I met you. Anyway, the real meat with having to do with my interactions with Maxwell came when I started also then thinking to myself, so as that, this was this was just before actually I sent him the last email. So that's what really tipped me off, was the combination of his paintings, and I went and looked at my Google Analytics account. Because I started thinking, like, where the F is he on vacation that he doesn't have the bandwidth to handle like a PDF file I sent him? The upscale ritzy artist based out of New York City who decorates like Trump resorts with artwork. Where is he that he can't handle like a small PDF I'm sending him? So I realized, like, well, I Googled his name to get to his, I knew, because he's an artist, I knew he'd have an online portfolio. We almost all do. So, and we typically have our contact information on the online portfolio, which don't try to contact me through mine, because that email is full up and I am not going in there cleaning it out right now, so it won't come through. And I'm kind of doing it on purpose too. I'm using a whole other email, so don't bother. But yeah, that's where I got his email contact actually off his portfolio website before I even contacted him to begin with. So I realized, like, I'll bet you, even though he already had my email address because I was the one who contacted him first, I bet you when I contacted him, he was curious to see like what I've been up to, and did a little Google search, and that would have quickly brought up my portfolio website, because I think it's like the first or second result in Google when you search for my name. So I was like, and I'm pretty sure Dum Dum doesn't realize or didn't think that I would have Google Analytics attached to my portfolio website, my own artist's portfolio website. It's so weird seeing my face through like cracks. It's just, my face is like splintered right now. So I went ahead and logged into my Google Analytics account, which is attached to my portfolio website. Mind you, I set up this portfolio website like over a decade ago. It's been up for a long while. I rarely have any traffic to this site ever in the decade it's been up. Maybe like 1 or 2 hits a month, and it's usually me showing someone a picture I did or something like that. The most I typically get any activity on there is like maybe a little bit of an uptick in visitors when I'm searching for a job and I have them looking at my resume and stuff, you know? Now suddenly, immediately following my contacting Maxwell, I had all of a sudden scores of people from all over going to my portfolio website. Lots and lots of people from random ass places. Not random, because, well, see, a lot of them were coming from the Los Angeles area, which I already clocked like a bunch of my suspects on the list that I sent him in the PDF file. Like Zay Frank was on there, Chris Thompson was on there, like a bunch of people who are based in LA or have properties in LA. So a lot of Los Angeles hits. There were some in Oregon. He's got a bunch of stuff attached to him out in Oregon, like a Motel 66. And some friends out there and such. There were some weird places like Westland, Michigan. I believe it's Westland, Michigan. Remember, I already started calling them the Western Cult. I'd already begun dubbing them the Western Cult, because in my research I'd already come to realize a lot of connections between them and like the West and going westward and looking out west towards the setting sun over water and such. And remember, like, setting sun touching water is kind of a good natural symbol that also can represent an abrasics. It represents the same stuff that the abrasics represents. So I was already dubbing them the Western cult, and people are suddenly going to my website from places like Westland, Michigan, and LA, and like a lot of places where, you know, people on my suspects list lived. And then of course there were hits from New York City and co-host New York, and which was Maxwell. Co-host is not like a place that doesn't have any Wi-Fi, because he's listed as I found information on him. He's listed in an article about him as having a studio in co-host New York, and then he also has another residential address attached to him in the Catskills. So as per like I ran a few background checks on a few of them for all, like the basic info, like where they've lived, so on and so forth. When you look at the addresses where they've lived, it's interesting. It's very interesting. For example, from what I can tell so far, Zay Frank and Chris Thompson and Michael Maxwell, it appears, were all living in Brooklyn, or at the very least had addresses assigned to them in Brooklyn, in the New York City area, Brooklyn, like all within a very small distance to each other. And near the OTO, there's an OTO location, Ordo Templi Orientis location there, or their mailing address is right near there, nearby. So they were all living, it looks like, for at least roughly maybe about a year. They were all living like right near each other in Brooklyn, or at least they had addresses in Brooklyn, all right around each other. That's interesting, don't you think? Zay Frank and Chris Thompson and Michael Maxwell. Hey, dudes, were you ever hanging out in New York City together, in Brooklyn? Did you ever run into each other at any, I don't know, OTO meetings, or like, what was it, Black Order of the Dragon or whatever nonsense, or Typhonian Order? Any of those meetings? Run into each other? What's up, dude? Oh, hey, it's my old art teacher. What brings you here? The old OTO. I don't know, I'm just wondering. I think that's interesting. Y'all were living so nearby one another for at least looked like roughly around a year at least. And then Zay Frank moved, I think he was the first one to move out to LA, and then Chris Thompson. And then Max is still mostly based in New York, but he also clearly goes back and forth to Los Angeles. He's had exhibitions out there and so on. And he's associated with businesses and such in Oregon. So Google Analytics, that's not even the weirdest part. Suddenly all these people going to my website after I contacted him. Because maybe, I don't know, maybe passed my website along to his network of artist friends. Look, this was my old student. Isn't she good? No, because here's the thing. Google Analytics doesn't just tell you like how many people go on your website. It tells you all kinds of stuff, like how much time they spend on your website, how they navigate through your website, like what page they go to first, then what page they go to after that, and then what page they go to after that. It tells you how long they spend on each page, so on and so forth. Almost all of these people, the trend was they would go to my page and pretty quickly navigate over to the digital photography page. So my whole website's got several pages. There's a paintings page, a digital photography page, an analog photography page, a graphic design page, so on and so forth. And the illustrations page is way cool. Like there's stuff on there where you can see illustrations, images just appear out of freaking nowhere, like video clips that I made, starting with a blank screen, a blank page, and you just watch the image build itself. It's like Bob Ross's ghost is making an image right in front of you. So if you're just a typical person and you stumble upon my website or are directed there, and you're just looking around looking for talent, you're going to sit on the illustrations page or the paintings page. You're going to watch the cool Bob Ross, like, ghost videos. Like, holy shit, it's cool images coming out of nowhere. That's what you're going to sit on. I'm pretty sure what you're not going to sit on, and where most of these people navigated to, and the page they all sat on, was the digital photography page, which had 2 blocks on it, blocks of images. One was places, so it was just like a few random pictures of places, buildings, houses, like cool little scenes. Then the bigger block on that page was people, and it was mostly kids. My nieces, nephews, younger cousins, and a bunch of kids at this museum I used to volunteer at back in my early 20s. They'd have me come take pictures of the events, and like I'd give the photos to the museum director, and he'd use them for like publications and stuff, and I would put some of the best ones in my portfolio, 'cause back then I wasn't thinking about like creepers. So yeah, they're all navigating to my digital photography page. The page has got a whole bunch of kids on it, pictures of a whole bunch of kids on it. I've since put up another page, or another bunch of pictures that have kids that are like in classrooms that I've taught, but the kids are all really pretty far away, and they're holding paintings in front of them, so you can barely see them. But the other pictures on the digital photography page that were of kids, they were up close, they were like well done. You could see the full body and stuff. Some of them were like in bathing suits because we were hanging out by the pool at my aunt's place and stuff. So all these people are suddenly, after I contact Maxwell, again, all these people are coming from very suspicious locations, and places also like Shanghai and Sichuan, China, which are high human trafficking places, where they trick lots of girls into like coming into town for a job and then lock them up in the back of a store and pimp them out. Stuff like that. So as soon as I contact my old art teacher, Michael Maxwell, suddenly I'm getting all these people going to my portfolio website when I typically have no traffic there, next to no traffic going there for over a decade. They're all coming from weird places, like very suspicious places that have connections with my research. And they're all very quickly navigating over to the digital photography page, which has a bunch of pictures of little kids, after I just contacted him about a pedophile network. And that's the page they're all sitting on the most. Second to that page was my contacts page, which had a picture of me. So it creeped me out, so I took down that block of pictures with the kids, and I replaced the picture of me on the contacts page with a little doodle. So, yeah. Anyone want to explain that to me? Hey, Max, can you explain that to me? Because I do recall bringing it up in the final email I sent you. Hey, by the way, what the fuck is all this shit with people suddenly going to my portfolio website immediately after I contacted you? And typically, I don't get any traffic to that site. And suddenly they're all going to the one page that's got pictures of little kids after I contacted you about a pedophile network? Can you explain that? And after I seeing all these very suspicious things in your paintings, symbols and references in your paintings and the titles of your paintings, can you explain all that? It's all very suspicious behavior. It seems like it's going way beyond coincidence at this point and into human conspiracy. So yeah, I'm pretty sure Max sold me out to his fucking friends. Hi, Chris, by the way. God, I enjoyed forgetting about you for a while. How's Em? I feel awful for her. I wish we'd stayed in touch. I'd been like, dude, he's got the psycho eyes. Chris Thompson, are you fucking insane? You could do better, Em. Jeez Louise, take half and run. Anyway. So yeah, I just thought I'd get that one out of the way. Oh, look at that, it's cleared up. Rain stopped. So that was, that's what really made me buckle down and realize, okay, yeah, no, any second guessing I had, although I still have been second guessing myself like tons since then, but like this was just this was a huge nail in the coffin for these people. Like, nope, this is too much for me to ignore. This is too much. What the fuck? And since then, more has come up with, with Zay Frank, and that's going to be a whole other video, because this is already just over half an hour. So, I'm going to go try to do something else with this day and figure out my gas situation so I can get to where I'm going, which hopefully is going to be my new job and a stable situation so I can focus up more on getting these people caught. Okay? Because it's been really just a giant pain in the fucking ass the last several months, a few months, the summer. Just trying to scrape out survival in the dunes and getting bounced around my hometown island by a bunch of cops. And the whole time in the back of my mind, a voice is screaming, they're raping kids, you need to do something about it. Fuck these fucking pigs. Tell them to go fuck themselves. You're doing important shit and they're eating donuts. So, yeah, I'm gonna go get on with my day. I might make another video at some point, so bye.